Now you know what theory is, you know what research is, and you know that theories are arrived at with the help of research. Now, let's take our understanding further and look at building blocks of theories. This is an example of a theory. So take a few seconds to look at the different building blocks in this diagram and try to think what this theory might be about. What might it try to explain? What phenomenon do you think is central to this theory? The diagram comes from a work from 1968 about managerial attitudes and performance, but it is primarily about motivation. It is these building blocks, the ones emphasized in boxes, as well as the relationships between them, that we are going to speak about in this session. The building blocks are called concepts and hypotheses. A concept is a general and abstract notion allowing us to order our impressions regarding a specific phenomenon. Remember that research is about isolating a particular phenomenon out of the reality observed. So if the reality observed is one day at the office, if you wish to look at people's motivation or people's performance, you need to find a way to isolate particular aspects of their work at the office in order to allow you to investigate that issue systematically. Concepts are building blocks of theories and hypotheses, in that they are abstract ideas used to classify together things that share one or more common properties. The key word here is that they are abstract. You cannot directly observe motivation. We can, in lay speech, speak about a person being motivated or lacking motivation, but what we actually observe is not the motivation itself, is various facets of that person's behavior, which for us depicts motivation. So look at that diagram again, the one we started with. Concepts are motivation, value of rewards, well, rewards as well, extrinsic rewards, intrinsic rewards, satisfaction, self-esteem, role perception, abilities, traits, satisfaction. All these are abstract concepts. You cannot observe them directly. Now, a hypothesis is equally a building block of theories, same way in which concepts are. And hypothesis is an informed speculation, a prediction or a proposition about the possible relationship between two or more concepts. Now, going back to the diagram, those boxes cannot exist on their own without any links between them. It is the links that depict our hypothesis about how these different concepts interact with each other. So, for example, the theory depicts a hypothesis according to which the value of rewards, in other words, the value attributed to different types of rewards by every one of us, leads to motivation. Equally, there is another link there between motivation and performance, or you could say between effort and accomplishment. A theory can therefore be seen as a set of interrelated constructs, definitions and propositions presenting a systematic view of a phenomenon by specifying the relationships between the variables with the purpose of explaining that phenomenon. Therefore, you'll have constructs on the one hand and the interrelatedness between them, on the other hand, and these are the building blocks of theories. You could also think of a theory as a network of hypotheses, a network of arrows, if you can remember that diagram again. Now, we said that concepts are abstract. In other words, that you cannot directly visualize reward values. It is a general and abstract notion allowing us to order impressions, allowing us to isolate that phenomenon from the general environment in which we observe it. Now, a variable, this is where variables become very useful, because variables make that concept observable. So, for example, going back to the diagram, a way to look at effort leading to performance is to operationalize, to attribute variables to performance. What could be depicting performance in practice? What could be those observable aspects of performance that we are more familiar with and that we could observe more directly? For example, for a car salesman, it could be the number of cars sold per quarter or per month. For students, it could be marks, or it could be the degree to which students improve from one assignment to the other. Now, similarly, for motivation, it could be, say, the number of breaks somebody takes during their workday. The more breaks they take, you could argue, the less motivated they are, or the number of sick leaves they take per year. Now, variables come in a variety of shapes and forms. There are independent, dependent, mediating, moderating, control, and extraneous variables. An independent variable is one which is presumed to cause changes to another variable. The dependent variable is that one being affected by an independent variable. So, for example, you could argue that the amount of studying you do for a course affects test grades. The amount of studying is your independent variable, and the test grades is your dependent variable. Now, have a quick look at this diagram here. Try to focus only on those aspects of the diagram marked in red. So, amount of studying affecting exam performance. Then you could have a mediating variable, one which comes in between other variables. So, for example, the amount of studying leads to input and organization of knowledge in long-term memory, which affects exam performance. So you'll have three variables there: amount of studying, exam performance, and then something in between, which is the organization of knowledge in long-term memory. So in that wee diagram there, that is the intervening variable. As you can see, the independent variable affects the intervening variable, which then affects the dependent variable. In other words, you could argue that the amount of studying does not directly lead to exam performance, but that it does so through the intervening variable of long-term memory improvement. Then you could have a moderator variable. And now these two can be confused, but they are really quite different. The difference between them, between moderating and mediating variables, is that the latter is not directly affected by the independent variable. Look at this example here. The relationship between studying and exam performance changes according to different levels of use of a drug, such as Ritalin, a memory-enhancing drug. Obviously, you couldn't argue that the amount of studying leads to the use of that particular drug, nor that the use of that particular drug leads to improved exam results. This is why we'll call the use of that drug a moderator variable, not a mediating one. The mediating one is directly affected by the independent variable, and it directly affects the dependent variable. Now, two more types of variables, control and extraneous variables. Again, these two can be confused. Control variables are not measured in a particular study and are held constant, are neutralized or eliminated, so they don't have a biased effect on the other variables. An example of such a control variable could be age or gender. Now, you may notice that we use the wording of extraneous and control for the same variable, and you may find that confusing. The reason why we did that is that extraneous variables are also not variables we measured for. We do not wish to include them in the study as such. But the difference from control variables is that we are not aware of the extraneous variables. In other words, if you are aware that age could be a bias in your study, but is not part of your study, then you may wish to control for it. If you're not aware of that, and only through the findings it becomes apparent that your results may be biased because of the age of the participants, then age is an extraneous variable. There isn't much you can do about it at that point because you cannot control for it anymore. All you can do is mention it in the limitations of your study, in the conclusions. And that's pretty much all you can do. Going back to the fact that research is a means to arrive at theory, hopefully the example we showed helps you understand how research is used to refine a theory.